So let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself in a season of creativity where it's just natural and inspiration is just flowing?
I feel like to some degree you always have to make time. Years ago, I was doing music ministry in Amsterdam with Youth with a Mission, and I had the privilege and kind of the ministry of going to open mics and being able to share about music, write original songs. And because of that, they actually didn't do a lot of covers. So it kind of put this pressure on me to have to actually continually write new songs. Otherwise, I'd be doing the same ones every week, and I didn't want to do that. So I had literally windows of time where I would sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to try to do something new tonight. And it really accelerated my songwriting. Like I had like 40 songs that I was going through and playing and tried them out. Sometimes they would work and other times they wouldn't, but it was just really stretching that muscle. And it was really but it was making time for it. Like I didn't just, sometimes I would have whims of creativity. In Amsterdam, you bike around. So I would have like sometimes little ideas that would come from that, but I still had to then take that idea and be intentional with it so that I could actually finish the song.
Yeah, so, I know that as creatives, right, as songwriters, as musicians, even as worship leaders, as producers, you can find yourself in seasons where you kind of feel dry.
For sure.
Seasons where life is just kind of hitting you. And then you can also find yourself in the opposite. You can find yourself in seasons where things are naturally flowing, where things are, popping left and right. So you're writing a song here, you're writing a song here, you have a hook here, you have a chord progression here, you have, the inspiration and the time to write a song, to finish a song, to record your song. All of these things can come and go with inspiration, with waves of inspiration, right?
Yeah.
That being said, if we only rely on those waves of inspiration, you don't get as much accomplished. So you alluded to the fact that, you had to sit down and make time.
There might be weeks where you might not have anything. It might be very dry. And then other times where that can actually, you can take a spark into that, or it could bring up a spark of creativity, but you have to foster it. I really always say make time instead of finding time.
Yeah, so as creatives, we can fall into the trap of only having inspiration. And then when we don't have those moments, we don't do anything, right? So scheduling it out, figuring out how it's going to work. And, the Bible talks about, there's seasons. The Bible talks about there being seasons for everything, right? There's seasons to laugh, seasons to mourn, seasons to reap, seasons to harvest, seasons to sow, seasons to, right? All of the things that, with one thing comes the opposite. So with our seasons of inspiration will inevitably, there we go, come seasons where we don't have that creativity, where we don't have the inspiration and things are maybe a little harder, whether that's because of, just lack of creativity, or whether that's life coming at you, right?
Exactly.
You change jobs, your kids are, being extra fussy, or whatever. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen with that. Hey, my name's Austin, and this is my wife, Kelle. Welcome to our channel where we talk about all things songwriting, all things music, all things worship leading, all the things, right? So leave a comment below on what we should talk about next.
And be sure to like and subscribe.
The Bible talks about there being seasons, so to be prepared for when the season changes, right? So think of like a little bug, an ant. Ants in the summertime gather food for the wintertime. Animals do this. Not just ants, but I'm using ants for an example. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I'm feeling itchy. But anyway, thanks. Yeah, right.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So ants, right, whenever the season is right and bountiful and plentiful, they don't just take it for granted. They don't just take it for granted that they're in a season that is working smooth. There's there's excess, there's abundance. But in the season of abundance, what do? They gather, they store, they prepare They prepare for survival because they know a season is coming upon them in which they won't have the resources necessary to survive. Right? And so often as creatives, we can be in a season of abundance and overflow, and we don't take into consideration that inevitably life will come along and do its thing. Seasons will change, and we'll be in a place where we don't have the creativity, the inspiration, all that stuff. And then we're kind of like, as a creative, fighting for survival.
Yeah, for sure.
So I would say a challenge to my songwriters out there, to my artists out there.
Are those wanting to write songs?
Yeah, even if you're brand new and wanting to. My challenge to you is, when you are writing and you have you're in a stretch of time where things are working pretty good, to prepare yourself for the season that it's not going to be easy. Because life happens. So are you going to be like the ant, or are you going to, lavishly waste it?
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like that.
So my suggestion to anyone out there is to, in the moments, in the seasons where you have abundance, store it up.
Yeah.
Write down all the ideas that you have. Record your voice memos of all the good hooks and the chord progressions. Like, gather it. Don't let it just escape.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes being a musician and writing music and writing songs and lyrics and, being a creative person comes this balance of those moments where you have it. It's coming. But if you don't capture it, it will fly away. If you don't capture the butterfly, it will fly away. Right? So my challenge to you guys, first and foremost, is to prepare for the seasons and do the right thing in those seasons. So if you find yourself in a season that is more, is tougher to write, it's tougher. Maybe you feel like you have a writer's block on you. One thing I would suggest is to, in the opposite season where you have a lot, make sure you're capturing the ideas, because you might just be like, I don't have anything fresh at this moment, but I have a catalog. I have a catalog of things I can go back to. I have a catalog of things I can explore whenever I don't have that fresh inspiration. So I just challenge you guys. All right, so back to the, analogy of the ant, right? So if an ant doesn't do his part, doesn't store up the food, he starves, right? But because the way the ants work and the way they were designed and the way their culture works is there's an accountability built in. So every ant is accountable for his share of the work. So as a creative, we often don't allow ourselves to be held accountable by others, by ourselves, because it's easier to rely off the wind of inspiration in the moments of abundance than it is to gather up and prepare for the next season. So I would say a big thing that will overcome this, block of creativity is to find accountability. Art demands accountability, but will we choose to hold ourselves to it? You're not just going to wake up one day and write a novel. You're not just going to wake up one day and write a record. You're not just going to wake up one day and realize you've written 50 songs. It takes intentional effort. It takes intentional creativity to get there. Was there moments of inspiration in that? Yeah, probably a decent amount. But you still had to show up and do the work to get there, right? So if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to be accountable to some degree, you're kind of just wasting your time, because it's going to happen where you're going to have a spell where it's just not working, a period where it's just not happening. So be accountable, and there's ways to do that. So do you have any ideas on how you could do that?
Well, I mean, coming from being a mom and learning a new season with having a toddler run around, and I actually do have another one on the way as this video is being filmed, and I definitely have noticed that there's a challenge to that natural creative burst. I gave an example of being in Amsterdam before, and I had to carve out that time, and it's been even more challenging in this season of just not having the same whims of creativity. So again, I have to be intentional. And a big way that I've done that in this season is really relying on Austin in terms of us co-writing and he'll often start some ideas and then I'll be able to come in and be like, okay, it kind of reignites that passion again. It puts me in that space. And I think co-writing can be super powerful. So having people that can hold you accountable. So he, of course, holds me accountable in that. But then with that, we're able to work together and bring completion. I've had song ideas that have sat on my phone and been able to bring that to him. Like, okay, this fits perfectly right into this song, and been able to complete the picture and, bring just a new space of creativity, but also like making it be intentional versus just operating off the whims. Because let me tell you, when you're a mom, you just sometimes don't have the mojo. You don't always want to do it. But if it's a passion of yours, I definitely encourage you to find if there's ways you can lean on someone else, if there's ways you can even set aside just 10 minutes a day journaling, just keeping those juices flowing.
Yeah, so co-writing is a great way to hold yourself to a level of accountability in your art. Because if you say, hey, I'm going to co-write with this person at this time, then they're expecting you. You're going to let them down if you don't show up.
Yeah, and especially with someone that, like, we're married, so we obviously can kind of do that at a whim to some degree. But especially if you set it up with someone, that definitely holds you to a different standard, and it's going to force you to really step up your game.
Yeah, and most of the songs you've ever heard in your life have been a co-write. That's just, there's power in collaboration because there's accountability in collaboration. And if you're accountable, you show up and you do. If you're not accountable and you rely only on inspiration, I may not feel like it today. I may not feel like it tomorrow. I may only feel like it at 2 a.m. when I can't jump on my drum set because everyone's asleep. But then it passes away, right? And then the moment passes. So co-writing is a great way to hold yourself to an accountability in your art. Other things you could do is maybe join your worship team.
Yeah.
Put yourself in this situation where you're flexing your skills, you're flexing your muscles, and if your worship team writes, again, there's opportunities there for co-writing. So, join your worship team, join an online community, join mentorship and coaching. Those are going to also be big in helping you, find that accountability that you probably need.
And I would also say listening for hooks, listening for different one-liners. A great option for this is if you're listening to your sermon at church. And we get this. We've had a lot of inspiration from his dad's a pastor, also a musician and songwriter. And we often get like his titles, just like, ooh, that would make a great song idea. So we actually have a song out there called Pushback that he spoke on David and Goliath, and we were like, that would make an awesome song idea. And so from that, we were able to take that inspiration and actually create and complete and release a song. So definitely be listening for little ideas, even if it's a melody. Have your phone ready to just sing, as weird as it sounds, into your phone if you have to go to the bathroom for a moment, and just sing into your voice memo to get those inspirations and those little ideas, because those can turn into something much greater if you allow them to.
Yeah, so one way that you can stop the problem of not having consistency in your writing is to find accountability. Whether that's, something like joining co-writing groups, whether that's joining a worship team, whether that's finding a mentor or a coach that can help you stay accountable and give you practical tool sets to move forward. Another thing that we've alluded to help you, overcome those problems of consistency is setting time. Just setting aside specific time to show up. Right? And again, I feel like setting time is an accountability. So accountability and setting time are like A and B. They're kind of like the same thing. It's like 1A and 1B. So Setting time is one of those things where, again, it's easy to be like, I don't feel like it. I don't feel the inspiration, so I won't do it. Set the time. Again, if it's 10 minutes, if it's 30, if it's an hour. I personally like to write and be in creative modes for longer gaps of time if I can. But like we've said, we have a toddler. We got life happens. Sometimes you just don't have the time, right? But in the midst of you not having time, create the time, right? It may change from day to day, and that's okay. It's not about the time. It's about the accountability to the art, to the craft, to writing. That's really what it's about. It's not about 10 minutes versus 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's about showing up. Mm-hmm. Showing up is more than half the battle, right? How many people have ever been successful if they didn't show up? Zero. Zero people have been successful by not showing up to something, right? So I would say that setting a time apart to show up, even if it's by yourself or in a co-writing group, is going to be a huge key to continuing consistency in your writing, right? And don't allow yourself to only rely on the winds of inspiration. Show up to the writing table.
Yeah.
Show up. That's a big part. So yeah, those are a few things that I would say can help you overcome these consistency issues. That's why it's so hard to write songs. That's why it's so hard to be consistent with writing songs, is because there's not accountability, and that alone makes it to where there is no consistency, because it's just now relying on inspiration. So you need to bottle the lightning, so to speak, with inspiration.
Ooh, I like that.
And pair it
Yep.
with the accountability that comes with setting time, getting in a co-writing group, getting a mentor, getting a coach, joining a team, joining a community. Those are the things that are going to help you overcome these inconsistencies, right? Yeah, so I would say those are the biggest takeaways for this particular video. And if you guys want more information on possibly joining with Kelle and myself for mentorship, if you feel like that's a position that you're in right now where it's like, hey, I really need to take that next step and be held accountable so I can do and achieve instead of dreaming about it, right? If you're tired of just dreaming about writing songs and getting your songs heard and recording your songs and getting other people to play your songs, then you need to take that next step. If you're tired of dreaming about it and ready to make it a reality, there's a link in the description where you can contact us and we can see if we're even a good fit to work with you. And then alongside of that, we also have a free workshop that is coming up. We will be showing you some mind-blowing things in this workshop. Absolutely free to join that workshop, so the link will also be in the description for that. And again, like and subscribe. If there's any kind of content you want to see from this channel moving forward, go ahead and comment below, and we'll see if we can make that happen.